You ready? And we've got a quorum. Sue said that she would be here, so, but she's gonna have to leave early, so we will wait for, we'll let her come in whenever she shows up. Let's start the meeting. I'd like to start by doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So I'd like to open up the meeting of January 25th. This is going to be the second draft of the town budget. And before we do so, I'd like to start with introductions. Carrie.
Carrie Lee. Jen Byron.
Aaron Masqua.
Les Thompson.
Mishka Haddock, Chair.
Michael Keister.
Tony Dumas, Select Board.
Peter White.
All right. And with us from the town, we have
Chief Gunner Foss, Chris Sterndale.
all right.
Kara Marsh, Library Director.
Chris Thompson, Library Trustee.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Chris, if you want to step on up and
Good evening. So you have before you the most recent draft. We continue to chip away at this. I guess what I would prefer to do tonight, and you can tell me otherwise, is kind of talk about the things that have changed since the last time you saw it. There's nothing dramatic there, but I covered a lot of things first time around. So
right.
the last time, the last time we did this was early December, and we were at about 3.8 million in the operating budget at that point. Or 2.9% increase, I think is what we estimated. That number's down to about 3.7 and change now, or 1.1% increase on the operating budget. There are some things going on off budget in separate warrant articles that I'll touch on too, but so as we move forward with our planning or make changes in priorities and things change here. We sharpen our pencils and find mistakes and shuffle things around. That's the kind of changes that we're making. And kind of the bigger dollar changes that maybe, I think we've probably touched on a lot of them, but maybe haven't discussed them all since the last time you saw this. Starting with line 18, you'll see all the telephone lines have been consolidated with the rest of the utilities. Our telephone costs in general are going to go down. We've contracted for a new telephone service vendor that's now under contract, and we're headed toward implementation probably within the next 6 weeks or so. Moving down.
So that now appears on what line?
That is now on 147. It's with heat and electricity and all that stuff. For most of it, we have.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty much everything in this building is that line item. The police phones, fire phones, library phones. That's all still separate. So that's what's been consolidated in that one.
Okay.
On line 34, we're anticipating increasing the hourly rates for election workers and supervisors of the checklist by $1 an hour. So that number's moved since the last time you saw it by a few thousand, I think. Maybe not that much.
Excuse me, Chris.
Yep.
Has there been any discussion about the moderator salary as well?
No, the board has not talked about that. But no, this is what was requested, so they haven't.
I know it was requested a couple of years ago. Seems to have not been addressed since, so I was thinking it might be still on the burner.
Hasn't been talked about. Hasn't been requested, hasn't been, or I don't recall.
No, she hasn't. She's actually so far declined to ask for one.
Line 81 is one of our big ones. That's health insurance for employees. premiums are going down, we knew that in December. The board had asked me at some point in the last couple of months to drill down a little bit on some of the lines that consistently show a surplus, and we have to finish the year under budget. We don't have an option to not have a surplus, so we always do. But the board was concerned that they're a little too big, so we looked at kind of where our budget is particularly inaccurate. Health insurance was one of those places. Most of all of that is driven by vacancies typically. We budget typically for a full year of full staffing, but then when we lose people, that creates savings in the budget. This line in particular has been consistently well underspent. I tweaked the methodology a little bit that I used to project the year ahead and pulled a little bit more out of this line. So that's gone down since the last time you saw it. I think it'll be enough, but you know, it's probably 15 grand lower than the last time you saw it.
And the insurance
Fuel.
premiums have gone down this
Yeah,
year?
yeah, they
So
went
it's not
down.
fewer people, it's the premiums have gone down.
Yeah, yeah, they went down 2.9, I think it was. Yeah,
Mine went up about a third, so it's just
Yeah,
kind of a
sorry,
personal, you know, wow, that's great.
yeah, it's great. That's never happened in my time here. I've
Okay.
never seen it. The insurance company explained the changes to me is driven mostly by changes in the way they're doing their prescription plans. I don't think our employees have really felt any change there. We're in a group, and the group has performed a little bit better, so that's savings coming back to us. I would not expect it to replicate. You know, we've had years of, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think the schools had in the same bucket. Big increases. Last year was a much smaller increase. It did go up only a little bit.
Okay.
Who knows what that future holds. On line 149, that's town hall and other buildings miscellaneous. We had, in a prior version of this, we had 10 or 15,000 in there for security upgrades for the town clerk's office. We contracted and encumbered funds from 2017 to do that work. We're still gonna do the work, but we're gonna pay for it with 2017 dollars. So we're pulling that out of the 18 budget and have basically set aside money from 17 to do that.
Excuse me, that's a safety glass or something you're gonna put?
Yeah, change the counter up, put an interior door in, and put safety glass in. Yeah, that'll be happening late spring, I think, but
Now, is that bulletproof?
no.
So will that go against your 2017 budget and
Yes.
show as a total expenditure for 17 versus 18?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, that encumbering is something when you do, when you have expenses that you've incurred or contracted during the year, but you haven't actually moved the
Right.
cash yet, you can save the money and, and reflect it in your 17 books rather than 18. So no change in the work plan, just paying for it with a different pocket. Line 178 is the replacement police cruiser line. We didn't have the trade-in netted out of that correctly the last time you saw this, so we pulled that number back by about $7,000. On the line below that, 179, we had we needed to replace a couple radios. We had those in the budget for next year, but we did those in December as well, so that those came out. And I think those are the ones that are you putting those in right now? Or they're done, those? Is that the radios that we did in 17 instead of 18? Yeah. Are those done already? Yeah. Yeah, so they're done.
Quick question, you gotta get a $7,000 trade-in for a 2015 Ford Explorer, is that right?
No, whatever the net of the two things was, we had the wrong number in the budget. Chief will tell you.
He's asking the trade-in value.
Trade-in value is,
Trade-in value is $7,000.
it is 7,000, okay,
Is that a 2015 Ford Explorer?
Correct.
yeah.
Seems to me I should be able to get a higher trade-in value than
Well, I
that.
would agree with you, except we crashed it twice.
Oh. Okay, take what you can get. Take it.
So it was customized.
That explains that.
Yeah. Let's see, in 204, moving down to the fire department, we had a couple of pumps that we needed to replace that we had in the budget for 18. We did those in December as well. And then the biggest ticket item that you haven't seen yet is in 208. That is fire hydrant maintenance. The dry hydrant on McCrillis Road, if you're familiar with McCrillis, you hug the river as you go over the bridge and hug the river there. There's a dry hydrant on the right. That hydrant failed earlier this year. It's been out of service since this summer. It's cracked, it's not moving any water. We need to replace that. We had thought about throwing that in a separate warrant article and just put it in here because it really has to get done. And there's no sense, taking a separate vote on it. We're gonna have to find a way to do it. So that is new, since the
Can't you
last
just
time.
use the river?
You need to be able to get the water from the river to the truck, and the dry hydrant is the way to do that. You can, I think, theoretically drop a hose in the river, but it's a heck of a lot faster and easier to use the dry hydrant. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I was
sucking
telling
up
our
a bunch of
lake
rocks,
house.
sucking up a bunch of rocks.
Right.
So in these types of things, how often do dry hydrants typically? I mean,
Well,
is
I think, we did one on Deerfield Road 2 years ago at the end of
Right.
Flutter Street. I think those were both made out of aluminum, and we went through a spell, I don't know, at some point in the last 20 years where they were using a lighter grade metal. We've gone back to using cast iron for those, so we shouldn't be dealing with this forever. I think our hoped and expected lifespan would be 30 years. They're cast iron, they should go quite a long time.
I think the old ones were PVC, if I remember correctly.
That could be,
One of them got crushed and the other
yeah.
one split by the ice.
yeah, maybe,
Yeah.
yeah. PVC was probably all the rage 15, 20 years
Yeah, I
ago.
was just wondering if it was,
Yeah.
worth considering doing a, sort of like a savings plan, capital reserve fund for those
No,
types of.
you know what, we have those, and what's actually more likely to be a challenge is cisterns. We have a few of those that are probably getting long in the tooth. So we're to keep an eye on those. Those get pretty spendy.
What is the
replace.
lifespan on one of those?
I don't-
Because they're steel too, right? They're just sitting in
No,
there.
they're making them out of plastic now.
Okay. I know I got.
The fire chief's gonna be here next week, maybe we talk about that then, I'm outside my depth on that, so, let's talk about that with him next week.
Sure.
I just know
Yeah,
they're kind of
because
on the radar, we don't have any that we're worried about right now, but they're out there.
They're
as-
out there, so we should
one of those things,
consider
yeah.
planning for it, kind of thing. All right.
And he can probably speak more to the age of the various dry hydrants too, and I'll prep him to do that.
Okay.
Let's see, so that's it for big changes. I don't think there's any other surprises since we last went through it. The rest of the warrant, I'll stop there and see if you have any other questions, and then touch on a couple other things.
I think some of us had the opportunity to go through this budget prior to the meeting, so I do have a couple of
Yeah, shoot.
questions and want to, start, I guess, back on page 1, and then work through and see what, so on page 1, just line 25, the town clerk fees, what exactly is that?
The fees charged to service users, people registering cars and things like that.
So those are fees we pay to the state or to?
They go, by law, the registrant pays the fee to the town, and we pay the fee to the town clerk. The town clerk is, by statute, gets some of those fees, and we are paying the state as part of that
Okay.
as well.
Is it sort of like acting like a third-party administrator, so you get a percentage of?
No, it's in the law, it's a per transaction.
So you.
This function is this much, this function is that
Okay.
much, yeah.
And but it's a cost to us versus being,
Well, it's
sort of
actually,
passed
it's
through?
paid by the user in a sense. It's, it's built into the fee that's charged to you when you register your vehicle.
So there's a revenue item that's aligned with this.
Okay. All right. The other section was, Jen, I think you were the one that caught that, election department total?
Yeah, in this copy, it's fixed. I think Dawn
Oh, it is
fixed it,
fixed,
yeah,
all right.
before the copies are made. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was
Thank
just
you.
a mathematical.
I printed my own copy before it was fixed, so I don't have that fixed in my copy, so I'm glad to see that. All right. If anybody has any questions as I'm going through this, obviously, don't hesitate to step in. The line 73, valuation update, and so on, $0 amount. I don't remember what that was.
Yep.
And what the costs are, but is there any plan on, rather than having like a one lump sum on any given year, for that to be sort of
Yeah,
spread out?
we have, every year, we set aside 20 or 25,000 with a separate warrant article for the 5-year revaluation that you'll see on the warrant again.
Okay.
This year. In the year of the reval, we use this account line to move that money around and pay for the actual revaluation, but we are setting aside money for that.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about line
25,000.
24?
Which lines, Les?
Line 24 on the handout, the town clerk salary.
Yep.
And is there not a procedure that carries through to all town employees in terms of them getting pay increases
Wages.
and how they get pay increases and based on what? And so is this the only person that's getting a pay increase?
There are elected officials, generally speaking, the town clerk specifically, and a few others, have their compensation, in whatever form that takes, approved by town meeting.
Okay.
And the vehicle that we use to do that is the operating budget, so we show that here it is, here's the amount, here's the, and as part of the operating budget, the town approves that. That is a way of, that's another way of saying the selectmen don't set the pay of the town clerk. It's really town meeting's authority to do that. And you'll see elected officials scattered throughout here, the moderator, the tax collector, there's a handful
I
that
got
get
you.
stipends. They are not employees.
I got you.
They're elected officials.
So elected officials go through this process for a pay increase?
Right.
Okay.
And every town does this a little bit differently, but the root of it is that town meeting sets the compensation for those. They are not, they're paid through our payroll system, but they're not employees. They don't get benefits. They don't get vacation time and all those kinds of things like employees do. All employees, in that sense, are hired in essence by the Board of Selectmen, and their wages and benefits and work rules and all that stuff are set by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You had brought up line 149, the other building miscellaneous, and how that sum came out of it, and you're paying for it out of 2017 funds. What is that, from unexpended funds?
Unexpended 2017
Okay.
funds, yeah. We handle those differently than the school does. I think the school moves money around within line items.
Right.
We don't do that. Selectmen have the authority to spend this bottom line amount, and we don't change the budget mid-year to
Okay.
reflect that, and we'll finish 17 with a surplus, as we always do, even after those things that that we did in December. We'll still have a surplus.
So the 179 surplus for 17 shown here is before those items?
Some are in here, some are not. Today's the last day that we're putting anything into 17. We did a round of payables, stuff today, just so happens today. So the next time we see this, it'll be very close to a final number. Sometimes there are journal entries and things that monkey with the number that finds its way back to the fund balance. But the next time you see this, will be a really good, close number. It'll be in this neighborhood of 179, right?
Yep, 179, 79.
It'll be around there somewhere, but this time of year, there's a lot of things flying around, so.
Go ahead.
Chris, I don't know if this is really building maintenance or historical society, but I understand that the Wi-Fi from town office building doesn't reach the Dame building? for
Does now.
historical- Oh, it does? That's been taken care of?
Does now.
Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. Thank you.
I got the thank you notes to prove it.
The, jumping down to 216, 217, for the building inspector department. I know you said you were replacing that, basically that salary with a part-time salary and then a planner position.
Yep.
What was the thought process behind that? Because basically now you've got two positions with two insurances, and the cost is probably about $10,000 more to have two people versus the one.
Yeah, well, no, actually, net, we're gonna spend less this year than we did last year. We have, at this point, I don't know that we're gonna actually hire somebody. I think we'll probably have a little bit more, room on the planning side. We see that budget on line, what number?
Towards the end somewhere.
Says PB planner. Down lower somewhere.
Page 3, line
93, thank you. So that line 93 moves up by 5. That is giving the planning board a little bit more room to hire consultants or planners for, whatever they need to work on. So if you combine those two, last year and this year, and the insurance savings by moving to a part-time employee, we're saving money with that
Okay.
change. Right now, our building inspector's working 32 hours a week, and is keeping up with that at that level, so it doesn't need to be a full-time position. So net, we're gonna save money.
Okay. I was just looking at the quick numbers, and it just seemed to be in the other direction, but if it's on an as-needed basis, obviously it's gonna be.
Just taking one full-time, we're gonna take out a full-time slot there and add a full-time slot in highway, so our benefit costs, isn't
Right.
gonna change there, but,
Okay.
a full-time slot costs us in the neighborhood of 20 in benefits, something like that, depending on which flavor of insurance the employee ends up with.
I know we had talked about this earlier, but I was just trying to get a better idea of the highway miscellaneous line, line 263. Most of the cost for that whole section is the 1-ton plow.
Yep.
And isn't there a highway capital reserve fund for purchasing these types of vehicles?
Yeah, that fund, I don't know what it has in it. It doesn't have enough to do everything that we want to do with it. We've got dump trucks coming up. We've got a grader and a loader not far behind the next dump truck. We could take this out of the reserve fund. That's an option. So, the board could propose it that way. But that capital reserve fund is not gonna keep up with a new truck, a new 1-ton, and the dump trucks that are coming
So this is above and beyond what you've got planned in, as far as like your CIP plan?
No, this has been in the plan. How we pay for it, you know, we could take a guess at years in advance, but the need for that particular truck has been in the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems to, makes more sense to me to treat all the different equipment trucks the same way. You either have them in a CIP or you have them in a budget. When you start doing different things, it's hard to predict from year to year. I mean, it's better just to have a predictable capital improvement, you know, program that has all the, you know, trucks in it, and you know what you're doing, and you have it one every 5 years or whatever, rather than just, you know, I mean, this seems to me, from a accrual accounting point of view, should be annual expenses, not capital purchases. Capital purchases that you would, you know, appreciate over a number of years. But, I mean, that's just how it seems to me.
Yeah, this is a way to keep, given where we are with the operating budget, and what we have plugged in for the highway truck capital reserve fund deposit for this year, which we do every year. This is the way to keep the tax impact stable. If we were to take the 1 ton out of the reserve account, it would make it harder to be stable in the out years, because we'd end up being short in the future, or we'd have to increase that deposit now. So either way is fine for us.
Yeah, no, I was just curious as to, you know, this line item, and then obviously having the warrant article for the additional funds for future purchases, so, all right. Those were all the immediate questions I had. Anybody else have? Hi, Sue.
Hello.
When do we have the next, when will we see the next version, or the finalized version?
Well,
That's the 6th.
you're,
The 6th? After the 6th, you said?
yeah, between the 6th and your public hearing.
On the 8th?
Yeah.
Okay.
The select board meet next on where are we? On the 6th. They meet next on the 5th.
The
Sorry.
10th, right, so your tentative meeting scheduled for February 1st, which is next week,
Right.
is on, so
Yeah.
everyone should plan the meeting. And then your next meeting after that is, sorry, not the 6th, but February 8th.
Yeah.
And that is your public hearing.
Yeah.
So will we be able to get a revised version prior to that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, did you want to go over the proposed warrant articles?
Yeah, there's really only one thing out of the ordinary. You have on the back of your package, the very last page, warrant articles. The bulk of them are kind of routine, and then we do them most years.
Not the last page, but the next.
Or the before last?
Oh, is it the next one? All right, well,
Your packet's like-
okay, my packet's different. Put warrant articles at the top. But this, show me what you have, because this doesn't have anything for a bond in it, so. That one, okay. Yes, I know where you are now. Potential town meeting warrant articles 2018. Right, that's where you all are? It's like this?
Oh,
Okay.
no, I'm looking at
Okay.
this.
That's where I was, and you
So
have
you're
that?
looking at
Oh,
that.
this one. Yeah, I probably should, I give that to you just for a historical
Yeah.
reference, to see what we've done in the past with warrant articles, but really what the full list is this sheet here.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so, the article numbers and the order of these things are still to be determined by the board, but, you're gonna see most of this, for your public hearing. The one that's out of the ordinary is number 2, the road bond. The board right now is considering proposing a bond to pave at least Ledge Farm Road and maybe others. The size and the duration of that bond are still to be determined. The working guess at this point is $650,000 over 10 years. But they're gonna come back to that question in 10 days and finalize it. This is a priority road project that's too big for any one year's budget. It's, you know, we can't really swallow all of that in 1 year. Not anxious to take on new debt, but the smallish, do a little bit at a time road projects they're getting harder to find and falling further down the priority list. So there's been a lot of talk this year, a lot of interest in Ledge Farm. It's had a rough couple of years. All of our gravel roads in the last couple of years have had a rough go. The last couple of days have had a rough go.
Yeah.
This is the busiest. Traffic. We did traffic counts this year. Had an engineer look at the road. Ledge Farm on the one day that we, you know, the busiest of the counter days that we had 600 cars travel over. That's way too much for a gravel road. You know, it's too busy. It's too much work to maintain it, and it's time. I think that's a fair summary of the board's thinking. It's, you know, at some point it becomes you almost never save money overall because it's so expensive to pave a road, but where it really starts to make a difference is from the studies that I've found is 150, 200, 250, 300 cars a day is when it starts to get really expensive to maintain a gravel road. We spend a lot of time out there with the grader. We put a lot of material down out there, and the conditions are still not all that impressive. There's a lot of people that are depending on that road. It's a lot different traffic pattern out there than it was 15 years ago. We don't have traffic counts for Ledge Farm, but just anecdotally, or those of you that live in the area, or those of you that use it now to go to Epping that never did before, it's different. It's a lot different. And so that's worked. It's been on the list for a while, particularly the first unpaved section coming down from Rocky Hill. You know, the stretch to Rocky Hill was paved 5-6 years ago now. That first section has been on the list for quite a while, and the rest of it is just beat up. It's in tough shape. So that's the highest priority of our gravel roads. Cooper Hill is also on our list for next year. There's a stretch of Cooper Hill that's still gravel and also challenging. That will show up in article, well, it's the 4th on the list here, road reconstruction. That'll be targeted in all likelihood at Cooper Hill Road. That road reconstruction warrant article is the same size of what we typically do. We take on a mid-sized project for around $200,000 a year. That's what we've been doing the last several years. That will stay the same. The road bond question will go to the voters over and above that. And before we get to that point, I'll be able to tell you how long and how much and what the tax impact is, but that's the working number right now.
So if that road were paved right now, how much would it save this year?
It's hard to put a number on it because it's not going to be cash savings to the town in lots of ways. It's going to be time spent doing other things. In a lot of ways, it's, you know, what is the sand cost that's in our gravel pit? Nothing, but we could use it someplace else. And the time and energy that our people spend on it, and the life of the grader that's out there all the time, and all those things, they're very hard to measure in dollar terms. What it will translate into is, most importantly, safer conditions, better quality of life for the people on the road.
Are they asking for it, the people on the road?
It's not universal, and I don't think we've heard from everybody on the question yet. There are people on a number of gravel roads that would like to not live on gravel roads anymore.
Okay.
Ledge Farm is the busiest of them. So it's not gonna, you know, on the one hand, cost us money, on the other hand, save us the same amount of money. This is a
Okay.
net, it's a net cash cost, no doubt about
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
It will, the net effect of it was that we'll be able to spend more time in other places, so other places will be better because of it. We will stretch the life of our grader and our gravel pit out a little bit. And then there's, the real benefit is the people that use the road.
Okay.
It's not to the town coffers, it's to the people that are using the road, people that live on the road. We hear a lot about dust from people that live on the gravel roads, understandably. And so the savings are in time and wear and tear for the people that use the road more than they are for the town.
Okay.
Yeah. I know that's gonna be a big issue at town meeting. You'll probably hear about it from folks in town and be part of that discussion, but I expect that'll be that's different for us. We haven't paved a long stretch of gravel road in this town in a long time. And that brings out, you know, everybody's got an opinion about that, and I
Right.
expect it'll be a hot topic of discussion.
And so, and I guess, being my first year on the budget committee, does it, and I'm not trying to say this in a funny way or anything, does it really matter what we think, because people are gonna vote on it?
Yeah, and I think that's, Tony, jump in. I think this is a question that's bigger than the board, and they're gonna put it before the voters and say, this is, you know, this is what we think we should do, but it's a subjective thing. You know, some people wanna live in a town with gravel roads, or people wanna live on a gravel road, and that's why we gotta go to the voters for it, so. We'll live with whichever decision they wanna make, but.
But what you said is good, you know, because for one, I like living on a dirt road, you know, but it's not about me, but the argument of if it's paved, then the dirt roads will be better. The dirt road you live on will still be a dirt road, but it'll be in better shape, you know, and that's a good argument for the people that don't use this road.
I'm trying out all of those arguments, so.
That sounds like a good one.
I mean, to me, I think the biggest concern is, what do the people that live out there want the most? What concerns them the most? Is it the health and safety aspects? I mean, it's their quality of life that's gonna be impacted the most, right? More so than the people that travel those roads, like to work and back, right? And we have to look at our neighbors, as townspeople, as a whole, as a town. The role of the budget committee in that is, I mean, we sit here to ensure that the town's money is being spent prudently. So, and then we have to hear both sides of the argument, for and against the, paving, to come up with a recommendation, at our public hearing. That said, Chris was asking for a gold-plated Cadillac to use as a town vehicle.
And that's in here, right?
That's the kind of thing that the budget committee would have to say. That's a little over the top, but, to me, it's about the town looking out for the townspeople, and in this case, the people that live on those roads and are impacted the most by the traffic, the dust, the mud, and so on.
There are, from the school district's point of view, we have had concerns from people that live on that road. The buses can't go down some of the spots that are not paved, so that periodically comes up, I'd say once or twice a year. If they come in, we have to get the bus company to weigh in and look to see what's safe, so.
It certainly has come up in the last couple of days with the ice.
I was concerned on whether or not the bus was ever gonna be able to get down there and get back.
Yep, so,
We had one bus on another road that was off the road until after 5
Yeah.
the other day.
yeah,
And the town helped
There's, I'm
considerably.
sure, a lot
to
of pros
get
and
those kids
cons
out.
for it.
yep. Yeah, all right,
Stay tuned.
stay tuned, yeah, right.
And that's an example of the intangible costs that Chris is mentioning. The safety of our kids, wear and tear on our vehicles. How much of your lifespan do you use sucking in dust every day, every summer? You know what I mean? You can't quantify that, but it's there.
Right, well, or the speed that fire trucks can get there, or police cars can get, can get
Right,
there. And
Yeah, there's some roads that the fire trucks they worry when they drive down because they're so heavy.
The flip side is, people already drive too fast on my road, I don't want them to drive any faster. you know?
Right.
So
And there's always-
there's just so many pros and cons associated with it.
That said, I think someone else had brought up the point that that's a law enforcement issue. That's not a pave it or don't pave it issue. And I think Chief is very aware of where that attention needs to be focused.
We'll get those people to pay for the road that are speeding.
There you go.
We don't get that money. Yeah, speed's gonna be a thing, it's gonna be part of this conversation. You know, speeder's gonna speed, right? But you trade speed has a value to some people, you get to where you're going faster. It's a quality of life thing there, but the flip side of that is that your braking distance is a lot shorter on asphalt
Yeah.
than it is on gravel, so.
Yeah.
Those are all the kinds of things that are gonna come up that.
I'm
people
sure it'll
have
be a beautiful road either way.
It's already a beautiful road.
That's what I mean, it'll
It's-
stay
it's-
that way.
It's really, it's gorgeous, it's great, it's, well, once you get around the worst corner, but, it's great, but, it's time, according to most. So.
Excuse me, road work like this is something we do ourselves, or we bid it out?
No, this project's too big for us, we'd bid this out, we've already had our usual engineering firm look at it and help us estimate the cost of what it's gonna take to do it. They'll be involved with setting the scope of the work, inspecting the work, compaction testing, you know, all that stuff that we haven't always done on our smaller projects, because we had in-house expertise sufficient for little roads and little, you know, mid-sized projects. This one's too big. We'll use some outside help for it.
It'd be an open bidding process?
Yep, yep. We'll end up doing some of the, we can do cheaper some of the ditch work and things like that ahead of time. We'll probably try and take on some of that ourselves, just because it's cheaper for us to do it with the flexibility we have. But the fine grading and the asphalt work will be contracted out. Okay. Gee, through the rest of the warrant, the fire truck purchase, the chief's coming next week, so, you know, we can come back to that. The changing the purpose of the fire vehicle reserve fund, we can talk about that next week too, but we've had replacing our breathing apparatus for our firefighters on the list for a long time. Those our packs and our tanks are all expiring in 2019. We have to replace all of them because they're no longer usable. That's about $150,000 item. We were gonna try and spread that over a couple of years. We're gonna tweak one of our reserve funds instead and do it through that. We can talk about all that next week. The fire vehicle reserve fund appropriation is the same as what it typically has been at $100,000, so that hasn't changed. The ambulance special reserve fund is, there's no tax impact to that. That's just authorizing the expenses that are paid for by our ambulance revenues. The revaluation capital reserve fund is 25, we touched on that. The highway vehicle reserve fund is still at 75. The tricentennial fund is still at 5. The HVAC ETF is the building maintenance expendable trust fund for town buildings. That is up $5,000 from last year. As part of the CIP process, we kind of increased our expectations of costs coming in that area, most directly related to the lift at the library, which is reaching the end of its life, the chair lift that goes from down to the basement. We're gonna need to replace that on short notice at some point in the next couple of years, and we don't have any money set aside for that, so that on top of the other facility worries that we have, we've moved that up to 10,000. The invasive species fund is still at 10. The next one is moot. The boat inspections one, did that get certified yet by the town clerk, or we just seen pieces of it done?
What?
The PLIA boat inspections warrant article?
Certified.
That's certified, I haven't even read that one yet, so I
You're
can't.
removing the change of purpose for the invasive species?
Yeah, not gonna need to do it. And the other ones are all, have no dollar implications, so.
What's this road acceptance Strawberry Lane?
That's a petition. Strawberry Lane was constructed a few years ago. It's still a private road. In order to become a town road, they have to get town meeting to approve that. And to do that, they have submitted a petition. Same as last year's petition that was not acted upon by town meeting.
How long is Strawberry Lane?
6/10 of a mile? That's just a guess from staring at things, but it's in that neighborhood. Newly constructed a few years ago, inspected. It's a legitimate road. It's not like some of the cow paths that we've bought in the past.
Now, why didn't the developer finish it?
Oh, it's finished. It's ready for us. We just have to accept it to make it ours.
Oh, okay.
So that we get to ask.
So we
So
get,
that so that we get the privilege of plowing it and maintaining it.
and maintaining it, there you go. So, Chief, you made the trip. I would love to have you give us your
I have a
updates.
2015 Explorer that Chris can have.
Can I keep the stickers on it?
Yes, you can.
And the lights?
The lights would be more valuable.
We have no major things to report. For the usual purchase of the cruiser. As Chris said, I got $7,000 for that rattle trap, which I thought was a great deal, trade-in. The cost of the upfit, and I have to purchase new radar units this year. We got two before the close of 2017. I've just ordered two more on the 2018 budget. I'll install one right away in the car that I'm trading away. I'll just wait. I had two portable radios in here earlier. We purchased one, and then Chris authorized the purchase of a second one. So those were $1,400, but it still beats Motorola by half. So we did well there. I have nothing unless there are questions.
No, the only question is, you're fully staffed right now, and
I am.
yeah, nice. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
We're spending more time in the school.
Yeah.
We've adopted a lead program for the 8th grade this year. In years past, I've had the misery of believing that the 8th grade was leaving without any assurances from their local police department that we had their backs in terms of the problems they're going to encounter in high school. I graduated from Nottingham and went to Dover High, and I was lost for a little bit. Going from a smaller community to a larger, citizen school is difficult for kids to adjust to sometimes. But the message that we're trying to get out is obviously about the drugs and, the bullying and all the other nonsense that we're experiencing lately. So I'm pushing more that way with the cooperation of the school, obviously. We try to partner with them. I've pushed that quite a bit this year. Might look at it a little harder next year. We'll see how the lead program goes this year with the 8th grade. If it's mildly successful, then we can expand that a little bit. I like the idea of having the cop in the school as much as possible, whether they're there to do anything or not.
Right.
Just because every day I wake up and it scares the hell out of me. But that's pretty much the only thing we got going. I'm trying to train a new investigator. Our investigator is a 32-hour police officer. The legislature, in their infinite wisdom, is going to cut him back in his hours. So I'm going to lose valuable institutional knowledge. We're not going to get that back. We're not going to get it back for 30 years because that's pretty much what this officer has. The new cop I'm going to throw in there is a 2.5-year cop.
Yeah.
So all of the gains we've made in terms of personnel, I'm trying to allocate them to best suit the community. We could have 20 cops. We'd still be busy. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the effort everybody's made to get me to where I am. And, there are no lulls anymore. There used to be, but there are no more, so. So the department itself is working pretty hard to cover all the areas we need to. I'm pretty proud of the guys. They do a great job, I think. As far as law enforcement on roadways, I hear from Freeman Hall, Smoke Street, Cooper Hill.
Yeah.
I hear from them all.
Yeah.
I'm aware. When you pave it, they will come.
Yep.
So we will be aware of that. Generally, what happens when they lay pavement, I put a truck cop out for a little while, see if we can't slow them down. Generally, the people we get are the people that complain. So it's a lesson learned sometimes. But a lot of our cross-traffic is coming from Barrington, Deerfield. It's cut through to get to from Route 4 to 125. And as Chris had mentioned, Deerfield to Epping,
Yeah.
down Ledge Farm. So everyone complains about speed, and I get it. I'm aware. I have a home. I live on a road. People go by my house too fast. So we're working on that too. But as I tell people, we can be maybe at one place at one time. Can't be everywhere at one time. So I'm receptive. If anybody has any problems like that, we can certainly address them short term. But as I say, we're pretty allocated out at this point, trying to catch up, so.
Well, I know I appreciate the coverage you guys are doing at the school. I think it's great. I know a lot of the kids that know the officers firsthand, you know, by first name and so on, and I think that goes a long way to letting them know that, you know, they're there working with them and not, you know, looking to get them, kind of thing. And that's
Those days
important
are
for
gone,
those
I
kids, so, yeah, no, I think it's great.
Remember those days, because I was the kid. But yeah, I think that probably what it is, it's the largest populated space in our town at any given one time is the Nottingham school. And I hate to use the term soft target, but that's pretty much it. So as long and as often as we can, we're up there. I know that we haven't had any pushback on that, so we'll keep doing it.
Good.
It's an initiative, yeah, that you've taken too with the 8th graders, given the crisis nationwide, to have that local effort that Chief took all upon himself to come into our school and offer that. And I think it's just something that we're very appreciative of that.
Yeah,
So-
I'd like to see at the end of the year, sit down with the teachers and the staff and see how well that went. It's our first year teaching it. I'm not gonna put the word on DARE, but DARE has become a merchandise agent more than anything. You know, their curriculum doesn't get updated enough. They like to sell T-shirts and pencils and so forth with the DARE logo on it, which is fine. However, the curriculum needs to be updated. Fawn's worked really hard to update our portion of it. She's done a great job with that program. Kids really like her. And I think that LEAD may be the takeover at some point. I don't know. We're looking at everything. We'll teach everything if we can, if we have the time to get into the school. The good news is that in one of the 5th grade classes, Fawn asked the children how many have heard the term heroin, and only 2 children put up their hands. So that's the good news. But they aren't in the 7th grade yet. So, I mean, she asked the same question in the 7th, and it was almost 100%.
Right.
So those are the things that, I don't, we can only do what we can do. I don't know, I don't have an answer for that, surely, but police officers in the school are a step.
Well, thank you for all that you do.
Oh,
So,
you're welcome.
yeah, appreciate
When
it.
I get the big bucks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy January.
What's this last page that I'm looking at? No. Is that another warrant?
Worksheet?
The expenditures, says Town of Nottingham, actual and budgeted expenses and encumbrances for the ambulance fund.
Correct. You'll see that, you'll use that next week.
Okay,
For
that's part of the fire department?
Yep.
Got it. All right. Chris, thank you very much.
You all,
As always.
see you next week.
Ask a general question. and this, you know, this not budget, it's other than maybe for the road work. What are the thoughts of Nottingham in terms of the rate of growth that's desired?
The rate of growth?
Right. I mean, do we want it to be a bedroom community to Manchester? You know, do we want it to stay exactly where it is and not change? I mean, is there any in the big picture of, that I think would tie into why we should pave a road? What do we want to happen to Nottingham in terms of its growth rate?
Well, we got 4,900 people in town. I think you probably get about 4,800 different answers to that question. I mean, we have a master plan that lays out.
That's really what I'm asking about.
That's a better question for the planning board than for me, but I think if I had to characterize the master plan, it would be that we generally would like some commercial and industrial development in a very limited number of places, and otherwise we'd like to keep it the way it is.
Okay.
That's a poor man's reading of the master plan, and those of you that are more familiar with it than I am could edit that, but I think that's the general consensus.
Okay.
But it's a fascinating read if you want to pick it up, the master plan. It's only a couple hundred pages.
Okay. Well, I'll
question,
put it on my list.
Okay.
It's a great question.
No, and paving gravel roads is a master planning kind of question in a lot of ways. When
Yeah.
we have, 15 miles of them or something like that, it's a big question. And one, if we're going to if we're going to do more, that's going to be a townwide discussion, because it is that kind of question.
Okay.
All right.
Very good. Thank you.
Chris, I got
Yes.
one more.
I gotta stand up.
The CIP document,
Yeah.
is that in final form at this point?
Yes, I
or-
have to change one more word.
Yeah, that's the one I
but
was
yes.
asking about.
Yes, other than that, I believe it's complete.
And-
You
and
can
when-
distribute what you have if you wish, but it's,
Well, I'll wait for the
Okay,
last
the
copy.
one- the
I have
one word,
next week,
okay.
probably. Okay, Don, would you get that from Chris for next week's meeting, and I will discuss that with the committee? Thank you.
I'll scratch it off my list, because that was going to be one of my questions. We'll wait till next week. Any other questions for Chris before he actually wants?
Holidays already started.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We will,
some of this stuff overlaps, but just make promises for me, it's okay.
thank you, Chris. Good evening. Thank you for waiting so long. And I apologize, you have to reintroduce yourself, just because I haven't had the opportunity to meet either one of you before.
No problem. I'm Kara Marsh. I'm the new library director, so I just started mid-September. So I started and then I did this worksheet.
All right.
Budget.
Welcome.
And this is Chris Thompson, one of the trustees.
Okay. Hey, Chris.
How are you? Yeah, nice to
Yeah. All right. You want to take us through your budget and your plans?
Sure thing. So, we were asking for operating, we're asking for a 0.9% increase. I know we have specific line items, that are not on your, version. However, there were a few lines that we did go over a little bit last year, including our alarm system. And that slight increase would settle that line for us. In addition to our cleaning, we do a bi-weekly cleaning. We have a third party come in and clean, and she's been doing it for years and years. But the annual carpet cleaning cost has gone up.
What line number are you on by any chance?
332.
332? Okay, thank you.
Do you guys remember that the library, so there's actually a separate sheet for the library.
Yeah.
So in your big budget packet, it should be way at the top.
Yeah. Yeah, you got that, like.
Got them both.
So the single sheet you have here, that is
Yeah, lines
count lines
1 through 5 are actually a copy of 329 and so on.
correct. They should be the same, I hope they're the same. But these accounts down below is what the library uses. They don't have
Yeah.
It helps you guys kind of further see what they're spending their funds on.
Correct, yep.
But we've kind of talked about this before, that you can not recommend their budget, but it doesn't really matter what you kind of think about it, because
Right.
they get to decide what they
They get
want
to
to do with
decide.
their money.
No, and that's fine. So, there is line 3, library operating appropriations, on this single sheet says 44,295, and on the budget, it says 42,295, so
All right, so I'll make sure
We need
the
to make
correct number goes.
whichever one
Yeah.
is supposed to go in there, so.
I think the key point, sir, is, as we look at the 3 lines and, we talk about the operating expenses, as she mentioned, we break down everything individually to provide the board with a little more, fidelity to what's going on in the library and how we're managing the funds. But if you look at the library sheet that she pointed out, that shows, kind of how we track our numbers.
Yep.
What we've been able to do through the years, I think I've been on the library board since 2013, somewhere in there. What we like to do is, we have a donations, fines, and we like to try to take that money and supplement or relieve the burden for the town per se. So when you look at these totals, whatever, we're asking for a 0.9% increase, but we're able to kind of hedge that with some of the other, pockets of money that we have only available to the library, again, to reduce that town burden.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it's much like, some of the other budgets where you have a total and you stay within that by adjusting your numbers accordingly, so.
Sir, yep.
Great, and then I heard Chris saying that part of the lift system in the library is going to be covered by, the town? Is that right?
It's part of capital improvement. Yeah,
Part of capital improvement.
We submitted for that. I don't have the exact total, that was,
Yeah, no, that's,
off the top of my head. But typically, the library covers any maintenance that needs to occur inside the building. And the town usually does the outside of the building, but the lift is a legal thing, so
right,
it would be it would wipe out our whole
right.
75% of our budget to
Yeah, no, I
replace
know.
that. And it's working, knock on wood, for right now. So, the areas that, the big kind of areas for increase were the materials, which is all the print and audiovisual materials that we buy for the library, and our technology line as well. We actually were able to start updating the meeting room with better technology. At the end of last year, we purchased a 65-inch smart TV for presentations. We had kind of a 1990s setup down there, so we updated that a little bit, which makes setup and breakdown and experience just that much better. Another area that we're planning to increase is programming. So we found that that's a great way to get people to come into the library, see what we have to offer, and it's also a great community space for people to meet. And that's programming from ages 0 all the way up to 100. So we're trying to touch base with all the different age groups. Tonight actually was our first program for middle school students, so we're hoping that goes well. We're starting a special group just for them, because we haven't really kind of serviced that age group yet.
Yeah, I still have to come by. I saw you had something promoting, online or being able to download books to your phone, so because I'm constantly in my car.
Yep.
So wanting to, I'm not a big reader. I like to listen to books.
Yeah.
So
I do
I gotta
too.
come down and learn how to do that.
Yes, definitely. That's another thing that the trustees and I have talked about for this coming year, to increase our usage of Overdrive, which is the digital catalog that's actually supplied by the state, and we pay a subscription fee to it every year. And we just became an Advantage user, which basically allows us to purchase our own titles of audiobooks and ebooks that are only available to Nottingham residents. So it decreases the wait time on those really popular titles, because that whole catalog is available to everyone in the state. So you're competing with all New Hampshire residents. And those e-items can be the price can be a lot higher than a print book or audiobook on CD. So we're still kind of working that out, how we're gonna make that work for us. Did anyone have any specific questions about?
No, I think the other big items for the library, wasn't there some talk about doing a roof or something, or was that done already?
I believe the roof was done
Yeah, there
within
was
the past 5
modifications to the
years.
roof.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew that, I remember some talk
Oh,
about it.
you're right, sir,
but-
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And the driveway paving, is that
That
a
was also-
CIP item for,
Yes,
Yeah.
not for this year ahead, but, I mean, it's on the horizon, right?
correct.
It is, and but if I can, that I would say that, you know, either how it's plowed, or if you look at the huge potholes, you take it right out of the library. There's a lot of danger to that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, and the entrance is right where that curve and,
right.
The road
Well, I
is
would say
too.
that more importantly, you know, for the budget committee's, you know, thoughts is, there's an after-school program right across the street, right? They're walking children across, and it's safe. I don't wanna give the illusion that it's not. But that I would say, you know, depicts it's unsafe in a lot of areas. So just when we look at the roads, if we can do something with that, and Chris Stern, he's all over it.
Yep.
But that's a big thing that causes us concern at the library as a whole,
Okay,
so.
good to know.
My
Anybody?
son is one of the ones that's walking across.
Yeah, see, well,
But I
two of
have to
mine,
say,
yeah.
the library is offering a lot of fantastic things right after school, the library,
Mhm.
the Lego club and different
Absolutely.
activities, the marble mazes that you guys are doing. He really enjoys it, so it's nice.
That's awesome,
good.
yeah.
it's great to hear.
That's great.
I think the library is an absolute jewel. I've
Yeah.
lived here a couple of years, and if there, you know, if there wasn't a library here, I would not be happy. And,
Absolutely.
you know, the fact that when new books come out, and I'm thinking, well, you know, I have to wait 6 months to get that, and you've got it, you know, and, yeah, I think it's great.
We're working on.
Thank you for what you're doing.
You're welcome. It's enjoyable. Collection development is one of our kind of goals for the year, to get that get the fresh stuff in there. We're just running out of space.
The newsletter is very helpful too, where you monthly, you put out what books you're bringing in, and I go down the list and see what's there. And
Absolutely.
And marketing has taken up a lot of our time too, we're competing with Netflix and social media and Audible and Amazon Prime and all these other
Oh, yeah.
modes of easy ways to be entertained and enriched. So we're doing a lot of social media marketing, we're doing the e-newsletter, the website is updated,
Instagram.
Instagram,
Facebook.
yeah, Facebook.
Yep.
I'm sure there's something else I'm missing.
Probably.
Flyers, you know, the old-fashioned just paper.
Yeah,
And we've been collaborating with the rec department quite a bit, which that relationship had been established when Eric was here too. So
Yes,
we've
yep.
maintained that, which is really great, to get us together and share costs for performances and that kind of thing.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you very much. I don't have any other questions. Anybody? Before they stand up? All right, well, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much, appreciate it.
thank you. Need more newspapers. I was gonna say, so you could use more newspapers besides the phosphorus.
We'll work it, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess. Minor point.
All right. Next item is general town updates. Kinda went through all
No,
of that.
yeah, we went through it all,
Have any anything else to add?
Not really. We spent a lot of time this past Monday talking about the road paving thing, and sure if you've taken a gander at Facebook, you've seen it's a hotly debated topic, so. I mean, because it's gonna go to bond, I mean, we're gonna have to have a public hearing on it, so. I'm sure it'll be quite an event when that night gets here.
So I've not been to Facebook, so the Facebook page is what, Nottingham?
There's a bunch of community, they're not run by the town, they're, established and run by private citizens in town, but one is like Nottingham News and Information, and
Okay.
it's called All
The other one's
Nottingham.
like All Nottingham.
And there's a lot of chatter on those pages,
Okay,
so.
thanks.
Yeah, I mean, you can.
A lot of
just
pro and
sign up
con,
for 'em.
yeah.
There's a mediator on there that tries to keep it as civil as possible.
Okay.
Maintain, there's a Nottingham cell swapper free, so then there's certain guidelines for that, and then there's the All Nottingham, and then another one grew out of that, and so.
Okay.
There's 4 or 5 at this point, I think,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I have a question, Tom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any news on the status of what we can expect on the solar additions to the town hall and the fire station?
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna start with, like with snow on the roof or anything, but I'll check with Chris, but I know it's on tap for,
Did they get the
For
panels
this year?
before the tariff?
that's a good question. I heard about that. These guys are big, I imagine they have an established inventory, but, yeah, I'll probably wanna ask them
Send a little
about,
surcharge notice.
yeah, I would, yeah.
Say we have a contract anyway, so it shouldn't affect
Well, that's the
our
thing,
costs.
we have a contract, and we're not gonna, I don't think it would be right to ask the town to pay a surcharge for a tariff on panels that were not taxed at the time they were purchased, so, yeah, I would, I'll see if he can look into that.
Good question.
And it's quite a few panels, so I don't think they would just like order them at the last second right before. I would hope not.
Just in time.
Yeah, it doesn't, it doesn't work that well.
Any other questions regarding the town? All right. So, Sue, general school updates.
I sent you an email?
Yep.
Okay. So I have 2 things for you tonight. One is the MS-27 that needs to be signed and then
Sign, yeah.
posted. So I wanted to pass this down to you for your review, and then we can sign it. And the other piece here is, we had a meeting last night. We've had a couple of cancellations due to weather, so we had our meeting last night. And one of the things that we discussed is that the continuum of the process around high school. They're at the registration point right now, and so I believe it was Jen who had asked at the public hearing, how solid are your numbers? And up to this point, since I've been on the board, those numbers at the hearing point are pretty solid. However, that said, we've had a shift. So,
It's huge.
it is huge, so, what you have here is a spreadsheet that the numbers reflected there are on the budget that was approved at the hearing. So we had anticipated and estimated 18 students going to Dover and 43 students going to Co-Brown. Our most recent figures, I believe they were on the 16th that they became aware of them, and we became aware of them last evening. 39 to Dover and 21 to Co-Brown. You can see the difference there. So we have 22 fewer going to Co-Brown than anticipated. To swing over, just skip one column, the tuition amounts are $13,950 for Dover and $16,177 for Co-Brown, representing the 3.9% increase to Co-Brown and the 5.9% increase from Dover. So the Dover line is going to increase by the amount there, the $292,950, and the Co-Brown line will be reduced by $355,894. And going over further, we originally projected in total that we would have 58 students in attendance at Dover and 170 in attendance at Co-Brown. Our new projections are 79 in total for Dover, including all grades, and 148 in, at Co-Brown, for a total of 227. And you'll make a note there, there's one student outstanding that is selecting a different school. We have various statutes that the state obviously has, and we have 2 or 3 policies regarding best interest of the student and manifest educational hardship. So it will be incumbent upon the superintendent to determine the situation and come to the board, and the board has the final authority to make the decision about where a child may go. At this time, as you know, the laws may overall change on that at some point, but right now that's how it works. So, we're looking at a $62,944 delta, and we wanted to bring that to your attention. We realize we'll need to rectify this at the deliberative. We were advised by the administration that they feel that there could still be some flux. I think they're recommending like a $30,000 to $40,000 reduction. There was conversation around, do you just do a bottom line reduction, which, you know, I prefer to see a line item for historical purposes adjusted. So that would be my preference. So I know we're meeting next week, we just wanted to give you this information for your edification, and then if you have any recommendations for us, but we wanted to make sure you got this as quickly as possible.
Does this impact busing, transportation needs at all with a big
It
shift
shouldn't,
like that,
because
or the buses that we
We were very
have?
light on our buses going to Dover. We have 2 buses going to each of the schools right now. We're at 4 total. There had been some thought, you know, if things had changed, we may have made adjustments down. And our contract gives us flexibility to make those adjustments, but at this time, I think we'll remain the way we are.
Okay, good.
So
Yes.
if I may, when you get these declarations from the families of where their students are planning to attend, do those change throughout the spring? That somebody decides that since their new friend is going this way, and
There can certainly be some flexibility, yes,
Yeah,
so it's not written in
nothing's
stone.
committed.
Right.
Yeah, there are no contractual obligations. Both of these schools are school of record. They'll take all of our students. There are no stipulations, so any student can go to either school. So changes can certainly be made up even after you're in school. We see shifts occasionally, so.
So, and the adjustment that you were looking to make was 40,
Well, the recommendation I think that we heard last night was around 30 or 40 to allow for some
some more
movement.
fluctuations and changes, yeah.
So I'd be more inclined personally to take it to the higher number and to make sure that we try to adjust and at least footnote, you know, budgets and accounting, I have a view on them that they aren't just meant to report what happened, they're meant to be tools that people can use to make decisions, and so I think they should be as reflective as possible of fact.
Just to clarify, the Co-Brown line in the original budget, it was showing like a $550,000 increase. So is that now being decreased to around $200,000 increase?
It would be, yeah, it's almost being cut in half, because we had budgeted for 43 at 16,177 incoming, but we also have the full complement of all the students that are there, so you'd be budgeting on that total, that 170 and the 58. So our budget was budgeting for 228 students. And the one student, obviously, wherever they go, they're budgeted for, so it was in our 228.
In your opinion, what justifies Co-Brown being significantly more expensive than Dover?
They're two completely different institutions, as I've indicated in their structure. Co-Brown is tuition-driven. They do not have a tax base to raise funds from. Dover obviously has a tax base, and they also have revenue that they generate from surrounding towns such as Barrington and Nottingham and other towns that tuition their students in. In addition to that, they have a tax cap. They're a tax cap city, and so I think that is also an area where that can, impact their overall cost structures. But we have in our contract with them a line that indicates that we have a cap at 4%. But, and that was a hot topic over when the contracts came.
4% of what?
increase from the prior
Okay.
year. And it's come in over that since we've had the contract and we've worked with it, and they've been good with us, so, so I think those are some of the factors that contribute to the differences. Also,
Well, I mean, really
sheer
what I was
volume.
getting after was not their revenue streams.
I beg your pardon?
Differences. Really, I wasn't talking about their revenue streams, but what benefits does one provide over the other to the student?
Oh, okay, I thought you were trying to understand
No.
the structure. I think that they are, Co-Brown is a school that has about 700 students in it. It's along the same lines. It's Division II sports. They're similar in size, and they are in the same athletic league as Oyster River, Hollis Brookline, so that size. They have, I think, what I would call a classical education that they afford the students. They're heavily intensive on writing. They want children to think through and have a thesis type of point of view. They're heavy in mathematics. They have a science, a separate science building. They coordinate with UNH. I think they provide a very good classical education to students. They also have a nice track. They have some decent athletics. And I think it's overall a good school. And it served the community well. Dover is a larger school. They play in a larger division. They have 1,320 students approximately. They are a local CTC center. They are building a new building. It's $100 million, 94.
CTC, I don't even,
It's a technical, so there are 13 regional technical schools, if you will, that are coupled with high schools that other schools can go to. So Oyster River will go to the Dover Technical School.
I mean, is that technical, like vocational or
It's
STEM?
vocational as well. They have some engineering, they have some business, they've got marketing, they've got cosmetology, they have veterinary, they have nursing, firefighting.
Gotcha.
So they have a lot of that. They also have, athletics, obviously. I think they play Division I for most of their athletics. And I think, again, another solid, sound school. It's, it's a little further away for some, but yet it's got a more of a small city feel. I wouldn't call it urban, really. And I think we have, what I can say, what I've heard on the last 7 years from the board is that the parents and the families that go to each of these schools are more than pleased with their selection. So whatever it may be that attracts them, it could be ROTC, it could be the CTC center, it could be the idea that we want a larger school, or it could be the idea that we like that classical thing, we really want that push on writing skills, we like that around 700 or so size. So whatever appeals, but I have pretty consistently heard people being very pleased with the choices they've made at both of the schools, and I think it's great for this town that they have those choices.
Well, unfortunately, one's just a lot more expensive than the other.
Yeah.
And that does get into the budget
It does.
issue.
Yeah, it definitely does, and that's for a small town too, when you're looking at the tuition amounts, that's a significant portion of our budget, which arguably takes from the, if that's sunk, then some of your K-8 is fluxing because of it, so.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that, if there's anything, anything else I can,
No, I was just curious. Does Co-Brown have a lot higher percentage of students that go on to a university versus Dover?
Co-Brown does have, Co-Brown, I can bring in rankings. Co-Brown typically ranks very well. Over the last 3 years, they've ranked anywhere from top 10 to within the top 15. I'm not sure exactly where they fell this year. 11th grade was taking the Smarter Balance test. The state has shifted to SAT testing now, which I have a bit of a concern about that. I think SAT tests were constructed to test something different than the Smarter Balance and the state testing. I think those are testing the standards to ensure that students are getting what they should be getting out of the state mandated standards. Each school has their own curriculum and can address it in the manner in which they choose. But an SAT is meant to see how college ready you are typically. So, but anyway, that is the new test at the 11th grade level.
Okay.
And I think we're in year 2 of that. So Co-Brown tests well and does well in that area. Dover also is right around the middle of the pack, maybe a little bit higher than middle of the pack, on if those are numbers that, people are looking for.
Okay,
So
thank
both
you.
schools are certainly more than acceptable in their results.
And this is just curiosity, and then I'll drop it. Do you think that the parents that send their kids to Co-Brown like it enough that they'd be willing to write a check to the town for an extra $200 a year?
Used to.
Yeah, that was a huge, about
2,000.
2 years ago,
Probably just
the
pulled the number out of
the differential was being charged to parents. And there were some slight changes in law around parity and so forth, and they indicated to us, there were a lot of legal, input, that we shouldn't be doing that. That if you're sending students and you're behaving in a way as though you have a contract, and we had the majority at that time of our students going there, and we were charging parents, so it was a matter of equity. And it was very well discussed in the community.
Okay, well, I won't reinvent the wheel here, even with the
No,
thought.
no, I appreciate though that you didn't, so yeah, it was a really hot topic, I would say.
Okay.
And we ended up putting a contract out that just kind of alleviated the situation. So once you have a contract with these folks, any of them, you pay the full tuition.
Okay,
And we got with Co-Brown, the first 2 years with discounts. And now we're into our third year, so this is our first year without a discount.
okay, thank you.
My suggestion would be to change the actual line item versus the bottom line, for the same reasons that you mentioned, which is to see if historically, in next year's budget, we'll be able to see what the actuals are versus some other change somewhere and then trying to remember where it was and that kind of thing. So, anybody else have a?
So change the line item, but keep the bottom line the same? Is that what you're,
Change,
I heard you say?
well, the bottom line is going to obviously adjust according to the amount, but to change the line item within the budget versus making just an overall adjustment at the bottom.
Okay.
And not adjusting the budget within the lines, so.
Okay,
So we could make a note that these are the differences, and then that maybe we elected not to do the full difference, given there may be still some flexibility, and put that in the notes. And we'd have to do it at the
Yeah.
deliberative via a motion.
Right, so, yes.
Given that we are a few years into having two schools of contract, is there any good reason now that we still have to separate, have two different line items, one for Co-Brown, one for Dover and other public schools, as opposed to high school tuition line, as this is what we're anticipating it being, and just not having to worry about which one
You
fluxes
could.
which way?
But it's just I guess it's just a little additional transparency around enrollment numbers and around the actual tuition rates that people may appreciate, when contract renewals come forward, or I don't know, I guess, I think I'm flexible to either
I
way.
could see both ways. I just think that having the two separate lines gives you, when there is a jump, you can see where that jump's coming from and why. I mean, because this like an adjustment like this, you wouldn't, if it was just an overall tuition thing and it wasn't broken down by the two schools, you wouldn't know, I don't know, you wouldn't get a clear picture of where that number's coming from.
It'd be harder to produce an accurate budget for it, because they have two different tuition rates.
But we'd have that calculation somewhere, we
Yeah, we have
just
it,
wouldn't,
yeah.
we
But
just
I mean,
wouldn't,
without it, you wouldn't be able to,
putting it we wouldn't have separate lines, we'd still have all the underlying data.
Yeah.
And it is the enrollment numbers that are really driving these increases at this point, I believe, because the dollar values aren't that different from what they've traditionally been, but we're gonna see this for the next 4 to 5 years.
Mhm. Anybody else? All right, thank you. Do you have anything else you wanted to cover?
Well, as I mentioned, I need to get to Boston tonight to
Oh,
pick my
yes.
daughter up. So if you wouldn't mind, I'll just sign that, and
So, but there's a Post-it note in here that
there are
there's some
2
errors.
Post-it notes. that are, she referred to them as system glitches more than errors. So it's the manner in which the website is accepting the information more so than an error. So she detailed what, you know, for transparency's sake, what those issues are, and indicated that they'll be working on it. So
I'm signing something that,
Hold your nose and sign it.
we've done that before, haven't we?
I don't know if, Dawn, if you've seen it as well, it's a glitch trying to get into the system to put down,
Haven't even touched mine yet.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna wait till they're done with that glitch. It is true, there is a glitch. DRA kind of, I have it in, and, my friend Michelle said that it's something to do with the provider of the system. So DRA contracts through a secondary company, to do this database tracking, thingy, whatever you wanna call it. And, they're having some issues.
yeah, so I think that, I mean, I know I saw that too, and I thought, but, I mean, at least we realize that that's there, and hopefully they'll be rectified within the system, and we can follow up on that.
Yeah.
So, I hope,
So the big thing for tonight is everyone has to sign this.
When do they need this back?
Now.
we have
You have to sign
a
it
requirement.
tonight, Right.
Yeah.
You have to sign it tonight simply because the document itself, along with the rest of the budget document, has to be posted by Monday. That's
Right.
the deadline, there are no exceptions. So whatever happens between Marjorie and the DRA, in order to make sure that those correct numbers are posted by Monday are gonna happen. But the budget you approved at your public hearing is the budget that must go on that form. So however, whether they have to manually tweak that, you know, export it into Excel and do those adjustments manually, whatever they have to do is what they're gonna have to do.
Yep.
So everyone should sign it.
It'll be scanned, and
Are you gonna take it with you, or
whatever is the pleasure of this board, I will do.
should give you one copy, or?
Just one.
Okay.
Let me make sure I'm not, yeah, just one with the pages of backup, which I did look at. That's all.
And it's unfortunate, it puts you guys in a tough position that, you know, you're signing a document that isn't necessarily 100% complete, but because of those statutory deadlines,
Well, we've done it in the past, so.
we have. These forms used to be strictly Excel spreadsheets, every town would fill them out, they'd email the DRA the spreadsheets, we would verify the calculations, and then they changed over to this.
Improvement.
The nice thing about this system, once they get all the glitches figured out, it really will provide them and us with a much faster historical comparison. They will keep track of certain warrant articles that we utilize to approve, for the town, on the town side, things like exemptions and credits. When we vote in solar exemption or wind exemption, they're now keeping that, whereas in some cases, if that solar exemption, which has been around for over 50 years, if a town approved it 50 years ago as a new employee of 5 years, if that's not documented somewhere, I have no idea the town does it, and then we're redoing it again, or we're giving it to people when we shouldn't be giving it to them because it wasn't ever approved correctly, or any of those combinations. So it's, when it works.
All right. So while that's getting signed, the next order of business is the approval of minutes. So if you haven't had a chance and you want to read through those.
Sue, did you have any edits on the minutes? Yes, those now?
I'm good.
So something that I had mentioned to Mishka, I think the last time we had met, one of the changes that the select board has made in the last couple of years regarding their minutes is a pre-review and an online edit. So that means that you guys could literally, I could upload your minutes to Google Docs. Each of you would be given access to those minutes. You could go in, see what other edits other people have made. Do almost like the track change procedure. So you would be able to go in, make your changes, and it would all happen ahead of time so that when you come to the meeting, you will get a printed copy of the minutes with those edits, and it kind of speeds up that process. So you're not having to
I don't know if you
spend
need to sign it.
20 minutes during the meeting reviewing them. I didn't know if that was something you guys were interested in.
Absolutely.
Great idea.
So it does mean sometime before the meeting that you have to go, log in and review them. I'll still email them to you electronically so that if you do have edits, you only have to log in if you have them. But if
Yeah.
you're open to it, we can create that option.
I think almost everybody has access to the computer, right?
It's really worked out for the selectmen, because we don't have to take that 15 or 20 minutes during the meeting. We do it at our own convenience.
Right.
You know, I do it at work during my break time half the time, so it definitely makes our own meetings that much shorter.
All right,
So I do have just one
sure. Do
change.
you need a pen?
Me too. I got a pencil. Thank you, sorry. Is there a recommended?
No. Anywhere, just speak at the top, on the side.
Okay.
One of their improvements.
Yeah. And the 7 lines from the committee.
Okay.
Three. Always good. Thank you.
So I'll take that and bring it tomorrow. Okay. All right, as soon as I get that, I'm gonna head out, because I gotta get to Boston by
Thank you.
9:30.
She's gonna be waiting for you. No speeding in Nottingham.
Don't go down Ledge Farm when you head out.
9:30 tomorrow, right?
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You too. Alright. I pulled this up earlier, so I'm gonna jump in and line 57.
On the, which, the
the,
December or January?
December.
Okay. 157?
Yeah, line 57.
Oh, 57.
Says, Mr. Sterndale explained additional budget trouble seen at the highway department was needed significant unknown repairs to the grid.
Yeah, I went through that too.
I couldn't figure it out.
Well, describe it. He was explaining that the highway department had unexpected expenditures.
Yeah.
I think it should be, it was due to needed significant unknown repairs to the grader.
Perfect.
Or unexpected
Yeah,
repairs.
unexpected repairs, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, because the grader was in the, down in the heavy equipment shop, where, Mass, somewhere down in Mass. I was down there for weeks before we got the final word on how much that would cost.
So you could say requiring a complete engine rebuild, period. Additional repair work was needed on the loader. Yeah.
Okay.
Period.
Line 84, I just had additional articles, it should just be article. Okay. 156. All I have is the amount in the reserve funds. Somehow it said, if the board made the decision to increase the amount in the reserve funds, I think there's missing an it. It might help level out the later year impact.
Okay.
And then on line 180, the board did receive, it says received. It should be receive, and then information about, and then the, I think, needs to be removed about some of the specific. And then on line 183, but then another, and then it disappears. Poof. I don't know what was going on there.
Then another driver, who's not, it's the timeline, so in December, they hired for the pink bus, and then a driver
Oh,
for
but
a
then another-
different bus quit, so then the driver for the
okay.
pink bus was moved.
But then
to the
another,
other-
so another driver quit?
Yep.
Okay. That's all I had.
Are we doing these one at a time?
Yeah, let's just close this one out and then we can move on to the next one. Anybody have any other changes to the minutes of December 21st?
I do not.
Michael's speed reading. You're good? All right. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
6 in favor.
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't here.
Thank you. The minutes of January 9th, 2018.
Sue Eden, yeah. Not Sue Levinson, Sue Eden.
Oh, Eden, yes, sorry. Sorry.
Here.
Suzanne.
Got it.
Yep. So the first one I came upon was line 34, reported this is a good thing, not think. And then I didn't find anything else until line 129. Attending a school, would the school board ever consider, instead of consideration, would ever consider a fixed tuition rate?
Give me that one, that's my quick.
So on line 129, where it says, would the school board ever consideration a fixed tuition, it should be just consider. And then line 134, it should say 2 schools are supported from a different funding mechanism.
Remove the word thou.
No, just to add the S to school. And then line 138, it should be Mr. Thompson.
I mean, 139.
All right,
Oh, did you change the numbers?
could just be a spacing issue.
Yeah,
Inaccurate.
139, yeah.
Sorry, Les.
So,
I'm not sensitive about that with a name like Leslie especially.
I got one on line 126, actually Sue pointed it out before she left. The what she was talking about wasn't third and fourth grade, it was third through eighth. The attendance bubble is what she was referring to.
Third through eighth?
Third through eighth, yep.
The paragraph starting 182. In the second sentence there, it says, Mr. Keister stated creating such a fund. Fund hadn't been established, what such a fund would be, so by that point, so I would suggest that creating a reserve fund there instead of such, this word such would, or remove such and a reserve fund. It was suggested a few years ago, and then, Ms. Martin asked if Nottingham should consider creating such a reserve account. That's fine.
Going back a few lines there, go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry.
165, it says Ms. Snow stated reviewed. It should probably say Ms. Snow stated they reviewed the upcoming CIP activities. And then continuing in that same sentence, the thought was that the board would gradually increase the amount. So the word was is missing.
Yep.
And then 171, and if returned taxpayers would, I think the word would should be removed. If returned taxpayers could, and then the word be is missing, be provided a further reduction. You catching all that? That should be, could be, and then provide should be provided, and then a further reduction.
The word taxpayer should come out.
Hmm?
So, sentence is, it was stated it was a timing issue. Those funds were raised in the prior year, and if returned, could provide further reduction to a future tax rate. That was the discussion.
That makes sense.
It was Les's question about the statement at the end of the warrant articles that pull funds from the year-end surplus. And
Yep.
how there isn't a tax impact,
Right.
it's just the tax impact is the loss of.
Okay, so how are you wording that now?
It was stated it was a timing issue, those funds were raised in the prior year, and if returned, could provide further reduction to a future tax rate. So the word taxpayers and would are gone.
Or you could provide further, you can just strike that further, could provide reduction.
Yep.
Okay.
I think you'll want to make that same change on line 179, third through eighth grade classes, not third and fourth.
Yep.
On line 180, it says Mrs. Whitmore stated Northwood budgets for 10 move-ins. Doesn't that, don't they have the reserve account? So it's not so much budget?
It is part of their budget, or they, and you can clarify that, budgets for 10 move-in tuition students in their reserve account.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the example she gave is that Northwood regularly budgets for 10, but in this, either last year or the year before, on that occasion, they had 16. So,
I'm not sure that it was in their reserve account.
They ended up not, correct? They,
Right.
in this particular scenario, Northwood does keep enough money in their reserve account for 10 students. Last year, they had 16 moved in, but due to adjustments in their regular budget, we're able to leave the reserve budget account alone and pay for those additional students
Right.
just with other savings. Savings elsewhere.
In the
Not
elementary
my
school.
budget, it
In
doesn't
the elementary
matter.
school.
228. Moment should be momentum.
Yep. And then the last sentence of the paragraph before that, because I'm on a different line number, so it says, if there is unplanned for, I think the word for should be taken out, unplanned number of high school students.
Tell me again, Ishka.
The paragraph just before that one on line 228, that's probably 223 or 224 or something like that.
224.
And it says unplanned for number of high school students. It should just be unplanned number of high school students.
Yep.
Line 239, I think it is. Recommended, it should be recommended changes and a final motion to recommend the budget. Change recommend to recommended and then add a in between and final.
Got it.
I think it's line 253, Mr. Thompson asked if the repairs and maintenance and flush of the glycol. And not about. You got it?
Yep.
I could ask for one change, just to line 256. I was asking if we could cut the $550,000 budget increase in half. I didn't mean the whole budget, just that originally they showed a $550,000 budget increase. So that was my question, and come to find out they did.
Budget increase to than half.
Yes.
So, okay.
Thank you.
And then line I'm guessing 265, it says, any adjustments with students and the high school they declare to attend would be a shift between the tuition accounts, so it should be
Yeah.
taken out.
You could probably take out that comma too, but I don't want to get in a comma war.
Does anyone have any other changes, amendments?
I move that we accept the minutes of January 9, 2018 as amended.
Second. All in favor? you very much. Other business?
I have a question about the Google editing that was just brought up. Do you know if two people can be editing at the same time?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
So we might want to, so that one person doesn't go through and really do a complete job of making the edits, while another person's also going through and doing a complete job making the edits. And then you've got two thorough versions, one person wasted their time.
Right, they're colored and highlighted differently, so if two people make radical adjustments to the same sentence, even at the same time,
Yeah.
they're colored and
You'll see the
highlighted,
changes.
you'll see who said what,
So
and everybody can
say, wait a minute,
say, oh
let's-
yeah, I
I'm
like
gonna
this
pull out
one.
of this and let you do it.
Right,
Okay,
right.
all right.
Yeah, you're not overwriting each other's stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't automatically overwrite absolutely everything.
And we may find that, it's a little different for the selectmen because there's only 5 of them. So we may find as we go along that it's just too many people trying to edit something. That we have to come back and do it this way. So it's gonna be an experiment for me to have so many different people take a look.
No, I think it'll be great. I mean, I went through tracks changes before I came, just looking to see all right, is that worth changing or not? But whoever's there first, and if I'm there first, I don't work. If I'm there first and I've got some time, I'll go through it thoroughly, and then you can just respond to my, changes.
Yeah, I think it'll be great, and certainly a time saver and so on, so, good. Any other, business that anybody has with, all right. The second draft of the town budget has been reviewed. We now have a meeting, so next week's tentative is no longer tentative. We will have the fire department here to go over their budget, and Chris will be here as well. And then on February 6th is the school deliberative session at the Nottingham School at 7 p.m. On a Tuesday. And then the public hearing is 2 days later for the proposed town budget on a Thursday. And I believe that also takes place at the school, right? Oh, no, right here? Okay, right here, all right.
And what are our roles and responsibilities for each of those meetings, last 2 meetings?
The deliberative session basically is, the budget is what it is, other than that line item change that we talked about tonight. So I will be presenting the budget on a section by section process like I did at our session.
But then will citizens be there? I mean,
The citizens will be there, the school, anybody who wants to be there can be there.
It's like the school version of town meeting.
Right.
So we generally attend.
And people will be there to ask questions about, why they're doing certain things and so on. And I'll leave I'll present the budget, because it was approved by the budget committee. But then, any questions that are raised will obviously be directed to the school board and so on, to answer those. And we'll make any changes and that kind of thing, so.
Actually, isn't it the school's option to present the budget?
It is the school's option to present the budget.
Okay, have you discussed that with them and they
Yep.
said, go ahead and,
Yeah, they asked me if I wanted to present it,
okay.
or if they wanted to present it, and I said, either way, it doesn't matter to me, so I offered to present it for them, and left it at that. So that's that. We will see everybody next Thursday. Any roundtable stuff? Yes.
got one. I'm talking specifically to those of you who have a little 2018 on their name card. At, open season for budget committee sign up is on now. I grabbed the one for the 2-year term. There's only one of those. So if somebody wants me off and wants to beat me out like I tried to beat out Miska last year, go for it. My wife will thank you. But, yeah, please please.
Yeah, definitely. If your term
Let's
is
follow
up,
the committee as we
please
can.
consider signing up again and being a part of this process. Experience is definitely a plus for the committee.
And we got one vacancy, right, with Suzanne out, so.
Yeah.
So if you know anybody that is good with numbers and fiscally minded and wouldn't mind sitting here gabbing about all this stuff with us, recommend it to them.
So there's, yeah, you guys have, you have three-year, 1 2-year, and 2 1-year positions.
Does it normally happen like that? It seems really heavy this
It's a-
year.
it's-
Choppy because of the
it is
vacancies from previous years.
It's,
But I thought we kind of,
so the budget committee.
We had,
When you have a vacancy that you appoint for, you can only serve for 1 year.
right.
So Peter's position and Mike's position are appointed, and the remainder portions of their terms that they've been appointed to now show up on that ballot in those 1 and 2-year terms.
Right.
In addition to the ones that turn over
Right.
naturally.
That's the regular
Yeah.
3-year
Yeah.
that go,
Right.
okay.
so, and I think last year we had 2 vacancies on the board, right? So,
Yeah, there were like, it was almost the same number of
Right.
people that were needed.
So,
School board's got a lot, they've got 3, potentially 4 positions. So, yeah.
And we've got a good set of people here, I'd really like to see them all back.
Absolutely, I second that.
I just don't want to be chair.
Misha's doing a great job.
Thank you.
That is like my biggest fear.
It was mine too, until I did it, and then I'm like, oh, that was nothing.
I get heart palpitations just talking. I can't imagine trying to lead, so.
I dodged
put
it
that out there
for
now.
5 years
Keep that
straight
in mind.
before
Yeah.
Yes,
I
appreciate
finally
it.
did it.
All right, so
Motion,
the last order of business,
motion to adjourn?
Second?
all in favor?
I'll